Hey everybody, Stuff I Heard Podcast. I'm your host Josh Peak, and let's get started. Hey, and thank you for listening to my podcast. This is my podcast. I am your host, and today happens to be Sunday, March the 1st of 2020. I normally do these on Saturday and Wednesday, but I've been out of town, and we've been hanging out with friends and having a good time, and I didn't quite get to you guys, so I apologize if you're listening to this now. You're like, hey man, I was waiting on the download so that I could listen. I know my 3 fans out there are like understanding in the fact that I have a life, and you know, we all do. We all have things that come up, but let's jump right in it, shall we? I listened to the Birdcast number 389 with Jared Freed. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. F-R-E-I-D, Freed. He's a comedian, young guy. He's apparently built like I am. He's 5'8", 250-ish. I'm 5'8", 250-ish. Funny guy. This is a good podcast. But these guys just bouncing ideas off of each other and talking about comedy and that kind of thing. For most people, I'm sure you're not going to enjoy it. You're going to be like, oh man, I don't know nothing about comedy. This is not even in my wheelhouse. I'm just imagining that someone out there sounds like that. I know you probably don't, but anyway, I enjoyed it. I am very excited. Anyway, so I went from listening to that to watching this show on Netflix. I'm always looking for new shows, and one of the things is the algorithm comes up with, oh, if you like that, you'll probably be like this. And one of the things that I'm interested in, of course, is things with superheroes and things with time travel and things with love stories and, you know, because I'm a softie at heart. I watched this show on Netflix called I Am Not Okay With This. And if you've seen the previews for it, there's a girl with her hair cut really short and she's running down the street in a dress with dog tags around her neck and she's covered in blood. And they don't show you much on the preview. They show her at a moment, like, throwing a rock at a sign, and it hits the sign, and the sign goes tearing off, like, 30 feet the other direction when she hits it. And so, that's all you're really given in the previews. And I watched the show, and let's be honest, most of you aren't going to watch the show, but I watched the show, and it was pretty good. It's the idea of a girl whose dad has died, he committed suicide, and she's trying to figure out her life. She's in high school, and she has a younger brother and her mom who's working all the time, just trying to make ends meet. And she starts figuring out that she has some type of extra powers. Not really sure what it is, but whenever she gets upset, things happen. It's kind of an origin story, if you will. I guess this is based on a graphic novel or comic book or something like that, because it gives reference to it in the credits. And so, anyway, it's only like 7 episodes, 6 episodes, something like that. It's not long. Each episode's only about half an hour or less. And it's pretty interesting. Let's just say that the final episode is awesome and disturbing and cool, and you get to see why she's covered in blood in the previews. And it's not what you expect. Just think pinata. Just imagine, okay? Yeah. It's interesting. I like it. I wish there was more of them. I hate the fact that they ended it so quickly. I'm like, oh, come on. This is like 6 episodes, but it's basically just a teaser for you to want to watch more. There's a cool kid in it that's kind of outside of his element, I guess you'd say. That's her best friend and sort of love interest. Dresses a little too fancy for everything. Is a little too cool for her and honestly for himself. And yeah, I'm interested to see the dynamic of what's going to happen as they continue the series. Then I had a chance to listen to The Fighter and the Kid, Brian Callen and Brendan Schaub, number 536. They were talking about wine in tomato sauce. apparently, Brian Callen's dad is always experimenting with putting wine in different cooking recipes and stuff like that. And he apparently has a marinara sauce that he put wine in. It's a little too much. a little too much. But it's funny to hear these guys go back and forth and just razz each other. If you like listening to friends give each other a hard time about everything, this is for you. The fighter and the kid, okay? It's real easy. There's nothing heavy. It's just them being silly. Then I listened to a interesting podcast with Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan Experience. I don't even know the number. He interviewed Aubrey de Grey. Aubrey de Grey, I wrote down the terminology, and forgive me if I don't pronounce this correctly. Theoretician of Genetology, Chief Science Officer of SENS Research Foundation, which has to do with aging. I looked on YouTube enough to know that this dude, Aubrey de Grey's got a giant beard that's like 3 feet long. I mean, it's a long beard. And apparently him and other scientists are working on combating aging and the effects of aging, and basically how to figure out how to get the cells to repel each other. Or not repel, repair. How to get the cells to repair each other. How to get brain function at its peak potential. And he believes that we're about 15 years away from being able to stop aging. It's an interesting idea to think about the human body and what causes it to deteriorate over time, cells to deteriorate over time, and how you could change that. It's a very interesting podcast. I've heard this guy before. He's really smart and a little silly, and it's kind of silly listening to him talk to Joe, because Joe asks him a lot of questions and Aubrey corrects him a lot. Sort of one of those things where, I don't know, I kind of felt like Aubrey was like, I thought you remember us talking before. Like he just expected Joe to remember everything they talked about before. And maybe Joe didn't take good notes the last time and refresh before this one. But anyway, it's good. It's a lot of good information, a lot of interesting information. Kind of makes you want to do more research, I guess you'd say. I listened to a very interesting podcast called Good For You with Whitney Cummings as the host. And just to give you a warning, anytime you listen to Whitney's podcast, she does a very, very, very long intro where she talks to Benton, her production engineer, and in there is some commercials that she'll try to do as natural reads. They're silly together. She's silly. But honestly, it's just filler talk. Like, I end up having to hit the fast forward button a lot. I don't know if you guys have paid attention whenever you listen to a podcast, there's that little fast forward 30-second button. I'm just like tap, 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 tap. And I'm just listening to her. And I'm listening for another guest. That's the whole thing. Is I'm like, come on, just get to the interview. I mean, I want to hear her talk to the other person. Because that's the back and forth is what's good. I mean, I listened to the first couple with Ben. But then I realized it's just filler. I mean, really. They don't talk about anything. It's kind of like Seinfeld. They're doing a Seinfeld podcast. It's a podcast about nothing. I guess you could say mine's a podcast about nothing, too. I guess. But people tell me that they like listening to it because it encourages them, because I'm an encouraging guy. That's true. I'm encouraging. Her podcast, the latest, is with Jim Norton. He's a stand-up comedian, actor. He was in The Irishman. He actually played Don Rickles. Looks like Don Rickles. Got a lot of the mannerisms down. He talked about how intimidating it was to portray Don Rickles when the guys that were basically getting him in the movie to play him all have met Don Rickles before and had a relationship with him. Martin Scorsese, Joe Pesci, De Niro, and here he is being Don Rickles. So he's just one of the guests. He's not the guest. He's one of the guests. He just happened to be passing by and wanted to stop in and visit. And Whitney already had another guest scheduled, and he said, I guess she said, "Hey, let's just do it together with everybody." So the other guest is someone called Our Lady J. Now, I didn't know what to expect. When I looked at the name, Our Lady J, I'm going, what? Who is this person? Is it a pop artist? Is it a rap star? Is it someone she knows that she just calls Our Lady J? I didn't know who it was. And so, as I started watching it, or not watching it, but listening to it, I realized that this is not what I expected. I was surprised. I was shocked. I was getting to see someone else's life from a perspective that I would never, ever have the conversation of listening to. Our Lady J is a trans woman, meaning she's a guy who has been transitioning towards a woman for a good portion of her life. She's got the boobs, the estrogen, I guess testosterone, the estrogen to change her voice. Has had 20 surgeries in her face just to reconstruct her face to look more feminine. She is a writer for the show. What's the show? I'm blanking on it. It's the one they did won all the awards for the Trans America thing on Amazon, whatever, Hulu. I don't know. I'm not up to breast on this kind of stuff. I don't know the terminologies. I don't know the names. It's not in my wheelhouse. Anyway, this woman, person, is a writer and is apparently very good. She won some Peabody Awards for her show. I hear it's good. I don't know. I don't even know how to talk about it, honestly. I don't want to feel like an idiot. I don't want to offend anybody. I understand that everybody deserves respect and is on their own journey, but it's so foreign to me that I don't know what to say. And this is an interesting conversation because she and Whitney are friends. It's also interesting in the fact that Jim Norton dates trans women. He says that, he's like, I wouldn't say that I'm gay. He said, but I have had oral sex with men. I've had sex with men. He's like, but it's men that look like women, not men that look like men. So it's interesting. It's a very interesting, educating podcast because Whitney tells her, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions, not because I'm trying to be a jerk, but because I want people to know some of the answers. There's a lot of questions that you shouldn't ask someone who's in transition that's insensitive and rude and just awful to say. She says, but I'm going to say them in the sense of I want to find out information and I want to be thoughtful and I want to give you an opportunity to tell your side of the story. So from that standpoint, it's very educational. It's very opening. It's eye-opening to learn all of the things that I know nothing about. And, we're supposed to grow and change as we get older, right? We're supposed to learn from each other, and here's another opportunity. I'm not saying that everybody's going to enjoy this conversation. It's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. It made me uncomfortable. But I wanted to learn, and I wanted to listen, and I wanted to understand. I'm trying to understand the people around me. I'm trying to understand that I'm not the only person here. I'm just a small part of this big blue marble floating around through the universe. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting. I already knew about Jim. I've heard Jim talk about it before. He's been openly honest about his sexual preferences before. Jim has got an incredible stand-up show on the Degenerates. I think it's season 2. He talks about depression in a way that a lot of people don't talk about it. And I like Jim. I think I would be friends with Jim. I mean, he's interesting. He's an interesting, funny, introspective guy. I don't know if I could be friends with Lady J. Not that I couldn't be friends. It would be very weird to even have normal conversations, because I like to give everybody a hard time and razz people and stuff like that, and I wouldn't want to say something that makes her feel uncomfortable. Because again, I like to treat everybody with respect, and I think everybody should. You know, we're all going through different things, and your thing may be weird to somebody else, but not to people within your circle. And so, you know, if we're, you know, Christians are sometimes the worst about it. If Christians are supposed to love thy neighbor as thyself, then aren't you supposed to understand that your neighbor can sometimes be a little different than you? I'm just throwing that out there. If you're not doing it, then what are you doing? So, anyway, I then listened to a podcast, another deep one, Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum. He interviews Korn. Everybody know Korn? The rock band. A lot of bass and drum action. Incredible lyrics. Korn, this guy named Brian Head Welch, was a member of Korn for a long time. And apparently he had a drug addiction really bad. And a daughter. His daughter, Janaea, he got custody of her, and at a certain point of her life, he realized, I got to quit the band and I got to get sober. And so he quit the band, he got cleaned up, and found Christ. And didn't do it necessarily through any programs. He just felt like, I got to do something different for my daughter. And from that, they've made a documentary called Loud Crazy Love. Crazy with a K. Loud Crazy Love. And it talks about addiction. It talks about him leaving the band and what it meant to the band. Apparently they were just on the cusp of signing a very large multi-million-dollar deal where it was an all-inclusive deal with merchandise and touring and music and everything. And he left right before that. And the band members felt upset at him because it was going to cost them potentially a lot of money. And he basically just had to walk away. And he stayed away. And one of the band members' dads passed away, and he went to the funeral, and there was a big fight. And, you know, years later, they made amends, and I think he's back with the band now. But they've all grown up. They've all changed. Their dads, their family people, you know. It's an amazing, touching story. And in it, you'll hear them recount things that happened. They don't tell you everything because they want you to watch the documentary, but they tell you a little bit about what was going on during the time. And in a moment, Brian and his daughter both break down and cry doing the interview because it's real and it was heartfelt and it was an emotional time. But this is a good interview. Brian, you know, Michael Rosenbaum does a great job of interviewing. He really does. Again, he does an intro that you got to kind of fast forward through to get to him talking. But he asks good questions. That's one of the things I like about him. I mean, I don't always know the people he's interviewing because I look on my list and I'm like, oh, you haven't listened to the last 12. I'm like, yeah, but I don't know this person. I don't know that person. And I don't know that. I got these other ones that I'm interested in, and I'll just listen to these other ones. And so, you know, that's kind of the interesting thing about having podcasts is you can bounce around and listen to everybody. There's not like a standard of you've got to listen to X, Y, Z. You can bounce around and listen to everybody. So, sorry, Michael, I didn't get to hear all of yours. I may one day, but again, I may not. There's a lot of options, man. But you did a great job with this one. I'm saying that as though he's listening to me right now. Michael, if you're listening to me, I appreciate you. It's my point of view. You're listening to Inside with Michael Rosenbaum. He sings that and plays the guitar in the intro. Just giving you a freebie there. Check it out. So that's what I listened to and watched. I hope that's enough for you guys. It's only 20 minutes worth. I did go to the beach this weekend with some friends. We've had the girls on the podcast before. Lori talked about a breast reduction surgery she's got coming up. She's anxious and nervous and excited and everything else, and hopefully this will be an opportunity for her to alleviate some back pain. And yeah, so we just had to get together with some friends. One of the really cool, unexpected things that happened this weekend was Kelvin and Karen came, and Kelvin had an opportunity and an invite for us to go to a robotics thing at the Myrtle Beach Convention Center. This was like a robotics tournament of sorts, where when we walked in, I was expecting like BattleBots, like you see on, there used to be a show on TV called BattleBots where they literally had blades and flames and all kinds of craziness, and they would try to destroy each other. This is different. This is more like basketball mixed with something else. I don't quite know how to describe it. I did shoot a lot of video. I took my camcorder, and we got into it. There was a team represented by the students of the Florence area. Florence District 1 has a career center, which is located inside of the vocation center. So these are kids from 3 of the high schools here in town. They have a robotics team. And this robotics team built a cool robot to compete in this. And there's all sorts of standards they have to go by, and there's like sections of the floor that they can shoot these little balls through these goals. There's one down low and there's one up high. And the one up high has a hole in the front and then a hole further back. And if you get it through both holes, you get extra points. And the further you are back and you shoot it into it, there's lines on the ground. And the further you are back, the more points you get as well. And there's all kinds of cool little details to this game that is very interesting. They program these machines so that whenever the match starts, there's like, I don't know, 20 or 30 seconds where they're auto-programmed to do something. So you think, not only is there engineering and design involved in this because they're building the thing, but there's also computer programming because they're programming programs for it to do this thing. But then you've got like distance and range and stuff like that for it to shoot these little yellow balls that are they're a little bit smaller than like a volleyball. They're shooting these balls through these little holes and stuff, and it is fascinating to watch them do this. But the beginning is just this auto program thing. So they go out and they shoot these goals, and there are 3 robots per team, and each team is done up through a collaboration with other teams. So in the beginning, they all have like a free-for-all match, and they do them in rounds, and then at some point they make friends with other teams, and then the teams end up joining a group together, an alliance, and then the alliance gets to compete as a team together. So not only are these kids learning how to build, design, engineer, program, compete, but also to build friendships and alliances and help one another and collaborate and stuff like that. And then there's the element of achievement and learning defeat gracefully, because let's face it, at the end, there's one team that's going to win. As they compete, there's like a team of 3. That's the team that's going to win. Out of all the teams that's there, and there was a lot of teams there, I was really impressed. People came from all over. There was teams from New York, Louisiana, Tennessee, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina. Of course, it's in Myrtle Beach, so there's lots of South Carolina. But man, I thought this is just fascinating. And you guys are going to watch the videos, and I'm going to post those later. I'm going to have to work on them because I shot so much I don't really know what to post. I could post it all as one big giant thing, but you're going to be watching it going, what am I watching? I could do it match by match, but again, I would have to do some narrating so you guys would know what you're even looking at. But man, it was fascinating to watch. As they do this tournament and they're shooting the balls through the holes and getting points, they can block each other, they can cause disruption. There's elements of, there's these red squares on the ground, and if the robot is inside the red square, they're not allowed to be disturbed while they shoot, and if they are, it's a penalty against the other team. There's these little things that, depending on the height of your robot, there's some that are small and some that are really tall. The tall ones tend to shoot further away. The small ones can go under these little bridges really fast, and when they go under the bridge, they can go collect the balls from the other side as well, or disrupt over there, and then they could shoot through the middle again. The taller ones have to go through the middle of the battlefield, and in the middle is like imagine a square with raised edges on it, and in the middle is like a tic-tac-toe pattern with 4 squares. So as it goes through the middle, it's bumping along through there. If you don't have a carriage system to hold your balls in there, you could be losing your balls as you go through there, or you could end up flipping your robot over. So you got to be careful going through there. But during the last 30 seconds, they say, all right, 30 seconds, and these robots rush to the middle, and there's a pendulum on each side, one for the red team and one for the blue team. And they rush over to their side, and they try to reach this articulating arm up and grab a hold of this bar, and it has to pull its own weight up off of the ground. It has to be clear, all the sides off the ground, not one side or anything. It has to be clear, and then if they're able to balance the pendulum so that it's not one-sided or if it's perfectly balanced, you get an extra 15 points. For each one of the robots that's up there, they get 25 points. So you have the potential for 90 points if you get 3 robots on your thing and it's completely level. We started watching this one team because of Kelvin's involvement with wanting to help out with a program of community service and sponsorship and fellowship. And because of that, we hooked up with this team from Florence, and we met with them in the pits. We were given a pass. We got to walk around and interview people and talk to them and see how they build the things. And these kids, these high school kids, are building them. They have mentors at their school that kind of help them figure it out. But these kids are building them. And there's a standard for their weight, for their height, for their width, and all that stuff. But they're fabricating parts, they're designing it, they're coming up with their own system that works for them, and everybody's robot is a little different from each other's. Some of them have different targeting systems, some of them have different ability to scoop up balls from the ground, some of them have different ability to rotate the head of the shooting mechanism that's going to shoot into the goal. One of the robots we saw had the ability not only to go forwards and backwards like a remote control car, but it also had the ability to go side to side. Like it could move and face the same direction and still be pointed where it wants to go. A couple of the robots that were on our team, 2 of them actually, it seemed like they didn't even have to stop moving before they could shoot and score, and it was incredible to watch. It was very exciting. There was a large crowd. I don't know how many people were in attendance. I think the guy said at one time, best estimate, was like 800. It was a full crowd of people, and everybody brought signs that lit up with LED lights that had numbers on them to sponsor their team so they could cheer on their team. They had colored shirts that were all the same. They had music going. They had a DJ. They had people doing announcing. Apparently they were online. There was over 800 people watching online. It was exciting. It was really exciting. I was like, man, how cool would that be to do something like that if you were in high school? I mean, maybe you're not built like someone who could play professional sports or high school sports, that sort of thing. But maybe you're really smart. Maybe you thought, you're like, okay, cool. So what's this math going to do for me, or what's this science going to do for me? And then you find something like this. This could be your thing. These kids are going to change the world. These kids are going to be the ones that design your telescopes and your new smartphones and your Teslas and stuff like that. These kids are on top of things, man. This is a leg up. This is a fun way to get kids involved in science and math and engineering. Holy cow, jeez. It was so cool. So cool. I enjoyed everything about it. I enjoyed the atmosphere. I enjoyed the camaraderie. There is the competition, but they also have this thing where if somebody needs help, other people come together and they help them. I mean, you could be helping your competitor, but if you have the ability to help them, you just jump in. It's like a good faith thing of, hey, I want to help you guys compete too. And again, these kids come from all over. So there's travel involved and there's parents involved, and it's a fun family atmosphere. It really is. If you have anything like this in your area, go see it. You're going to be really impressed. I'm going to put some videos online. Check them out. I'm not really sure what to call it. Robotics competition, Myrtle Beach Convention Center. And I may just number them, just 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll post them all individually. I may not be able to post the sound because there's music playing in parts, or I may skip out the sound and just go to the competitions because I don't think music plays during the competition. Anyway, I'm going to make it so you guys can watch it, and it's really entertaining. So that's it. I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you again to everybody who subscribes. I am sorry for not getting this out earlier, but you get busy with life, right? Yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of this. Please subscribe, rate, share with your friends. If you want to be on, let me know. If you've been on before and want to be on again, talk to me. Hey, I'm looking for conversations, man. This is a lot more fun when there's more than one of us. Maybe you come on and you tell me about your thing that you heard, or the thing that you're interested in. That's kind of my point of having people on here in the past. I didn't realize it, but that's kind of it. I mean, in the case of Jan, I just wanted to interview Jan because I think his life is fascinating. There's another guy I work with that I'm trying to convince to come on because I think his life is fascinating. I always like the origin story. How did you get here? But then once you've gotten here and we have that conversation, it's like, okay, what do you want to talk about now? Because, I mean, that's the skill, right? That's the thing that we're engaged in. We don't watch the X-Men just because we get to see how Wolverine became Wolverine. It's like, hey, what happens when Wolverine fights Cyclops or Juggernaut or something like that? I know that right now people are like, wait, aren't they on the same team? At times. Wolverine's complicated. Anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of this. Yeah, y'all take care now. And check out the robot video. Let me know what you think about that. Okay? All right, cue the cow.